Welcome to the IISS this afternoon. We are delighted to welcome Pakistan's Federal Minister for the Interior and Narcotics Control, Chaudhry Nisar, to the IISS today. Minister Nisar's presence here today is a reflection of the IISS's strong relationship with Pakistan. In the last few months, we have been privileged to host Sartaj Aziz, the advisor to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif for National Security and Foreign Affairs, as well as General Raheel Sharif, the Army Chief of Pakistan at the IISS. And the IISS's senior council member, Ambassador Malia Lodi, leaves for New York tomorrow morning to take up her post as the new permanent representative of Pakistan to the United Nations. Pakistan's worst ever terror attack took place on 16 December 2014 when the outlawed Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan brazenly attacked and killed 132 children and 15 others in the Army Public School in Peshawar. This tragedy shocked the nation and the international community. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif responded immediately by stepping up the military's ongoing Zarb-e-Azab operation against terrorists in the tribal areas bordering Afghanistan, launching a new 20-point national action plan to combat terrorism, and passing the 21st Amendment Act 2015 to provide the required constitutional validity. We are delighted that Chaudhry Nisar, who is a top member of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's cabinet, is here today to speak on Pakistan's fight against terrorism. An 8-time member of the Pakistan National Assembly, Chaudhry Nisar has held several ministerial portfolios earlier and also served as leader of the opposition in the National Assembly. The floor is yours, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me say at the outset what a pleasure it is to be addressing all of you here this afternoon. I'd like to thank Mr. Chaudhry and IISS. Too many I's and too many S's, but you know, I hope you don't mind if I get mixed up, because in this day and age, I interact with so many organizations, the ISIL, ISIL, IISS, so if I somehow I'm confused, so you'll excuse me. Secondly, I'm basically making an off-the-cuff presentation. I have no prepared notes. In fact, until the time I reached here, I didn't exactly know what particular aspect of the war against militancy I was to speak on. It's a huge agenda. It's not just what transpired after 9/11. A lot of the fight against extremism and terrorism precedes that. So to put in perspective within the limited time that we have, and not bore you to sleep or bore you to death, I'm sorry to use that term, keep the focus in perspective also, I have to be very, very selective. More importantly, unless and until I give you a historical background, you will not be able to understand, at least those of you who don't come from my part of the world, will not be able to understand the rationale of Pakistan's present policies. So I'll start off with a very brief historical background, focus on, again very briefly, what has happened in the 14 years after 9/11, and then mainly focus, and we should focus on the way forward, on how we see and how you see, and I'll invite questions on that account, the international community moving forward as of now. As I said at the outset, the milestone around which or after which we actually discuss the fight against extremism and militancy is the date of 9/11. But Pakistan has been having problems with extremism and militancy off and on since its preoccupation with the Afghan jihad, which it fought in alliance with the international community and which had a very massive fallout not only in Pakistan but in the rest of the region. Over the years, particularly in the 90s, successive democratic governments tried and were generally successful in grappling with the after effects of the Afghan war. And in the mid and the later 70s, I have been part both of the opposition and also of the government. I recall very categorically that by and large, Pakistan's return to normalcy, a peaceful existence, had almost been achieved. There were absolutely, before 9/11, there was absolutely no incidents of terrorism, no suicide bombings, a few cases here and there, quite rare, once in 2 months, maybe once in 4 months, of sectarian clashes, but they were very few and far between. And they were not directly related to instances of terror. 9/11 brought a sea change. But I'd like you, ladies and gentlemen, to realize and also to appreciate that 9/11, however big a tragedy it was, had no Pakistan connection. All those extremists who blew up various installations in the United States had absolutely no connection. They were neither Pakistanis, nor did they have any direct or indirect link with Pakistan. But what happened after 9/11? The entire fallout, the entire backlash of what they had done fell on Pakistan and Afghanistan, and particularly Pakistan. Afghanistan, even before 9/11, happened to be, unfortunately, I'm sorry for using the term, but one should say it as it is, was not a terribly stable country. It was in many ways an ungoverned country. Vast areas lying ungoverned. Vast areas ruled by various militant mafias or militant groups. Pakistan was a normal democratic country, living by and large in a peaceful environment, following the rules of the game internationally and within our own country. When we were hit with this huge storm post 9/11. I'll not go into the highly controversial decision of the then military dictator to take a certain policy line. I feel a lot of what has happened to Pakistan was on account of that controversial decision. But I'll not get into the details because that will totally set us on a different track. We are looking at the way forward, not looking back, and not looking here to, at least I'm not here to wash Pakistan's dirty political linen here in front of you. Nor would you be interested in that. Suffice it to say that post 9/11, right up till this moment of time, the heaviest brunt, the heaviest fallout of that tragic incident and what then followed it fell on Pakistan. You tell me, how can a country survive and thrive when it has lost over 50,000 people in this fight against extremism? When we took over in June 2013, there were anywhere between 10 to 12 detonations and explosions taking place on a daily basis. And no place was sacrosanct. No marketplace, no church, no mosque, no school. There were no constraints on what the terrorists would strike at. It had been going on for almost 13 years. When I took over as the Minister for Interior, my main area of focus was, number one, what is the policy? Who handles internal security? As per the law and the Constitution, it was the Ministry of Interior. But on the ground, there was so much space and there were so many departments and so many organizations involved in it that it was like too many cooks spoiling the broth. There was no clarity, no clear-cut leadership. Number two, what was Pakistan's policy in handling the militants? Was the civilian government in charge? Was the military in charge? Was the ISIL in charge? Again, there was a lack of clarity on that account. They were all in charge in their own ways. They were trying to make the best out of a very difficult situation. But at the end of the day, as I said, that uniformity of policy was not there. So, in consultation with the political forces, the political parties, in consultation with the cabinet, and also in consultation with the military, my first task was to identify a coherent internal security policy. It took us almost 6 months. And in a country like Pakistan, where a lot of organizations work open-endedly, some over and beyond their perspective and their area of responsibility, it was very difficult to bring about a consensus document, a document in which the political parties, the provincial governments, the military, the intelligence agencies would all concur. I'll not get into the details again, that will take a lot of time. But within a span of about 7 months, we put into place, we conceived, put into place, and then put it before the cabinet and the parliament, mutually agreed document which goes by the name of Pakistan's first ever internal security policy, on which we squarely put the onus of responsibility for internal security on the civilian government and the Ministry of Interior. Let me also tell you that when we were putting all the documents together and all the background papers together, it came as a complete shock to me, and before I actually articulated it in Parliament, not many people in Pakistan knew about it. We had, and we have to this day, 33 intelligence agencies operating in Pakistan at different tiers. That includes the military, federal intelligence agencies, provincial intelligence agencies. Now in a country which I think is overflowing with the number of intelligence agencies, there was no intelligence coordination. There was no information sharing. There was a lot of competition. And I'm using a very soft term when I say competition. In actual terms, the competition sometimes became very, very strong and confrontationist. There was absolutely no concept of information fusion. So our main focus in the internal security policy was to bring about some level of sanity in intelligence sharing. I think we have I'm sorry for sounding a bit immodest on this, and please excuse me on that account, but we have done tremendous, monumental work in bringing the intelligence agencies closer, more coordinated, sharing input, and then sharing intelligence, actionable intelligence with the security agencies on the one hand and the provinces on the other. When the intelligence relates to military operations or to terrorists targeting military installations, then naturally that information had to be shared with the military. But in most cases, the intelligence related to operations within the provinces. On that account, there were huge gaps. And even now, I am not totally satisfied. As the person in charge for internal security, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Let me be very clear and categorical. These things take time. Institutional building is a very difficult task, and particularly in societies and in government, like, with the background that we have had. But a lot of work has been done. A lot more needs to be done. But I was looking at the figures of the last 1 year, and the major terrorist incidents that had taken place, we had prior intelligence information which we had shared with the provinces and with the relevant security agencies. So that was a huge quantum jump from the past 12, 13, 14 years, in which intelligence agencies treated intelligence, gathering as their own private preserve, and they would guard it, and they would use it as per their own personal perspective, and not from the perspective of a national program. So that has been the biggest credit, so to say, of the internal security policies implementation. There is now a greater coordination at the operational level between the military, the provinces, and the federal government. Again, the Minister of Interior chairs that, and we have what is called the integrated security mechanism. This is again part of the internal security policy, and this basically puts on one table under the Ministry of Interior all the relevant security agencies, intelligence agencies, and the provincial governments, and that includes the governments of Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir, so that on a very frequent basis we not only share information but also strategize as to how to go forward in the war on terror. We were moving along slowly but surely. We were facing our share of problems. We were facing the share of almost the daily explosions, when suddenly the Peshawar incident took place. Let me also inform you that over the last 14 years, incidents very similar to the Peshawar incident took place. We had one incident where again in Peshawar in 2009, when 125 women and children were specifically targeted. 125 were targeted and killed, again through an explosion, a suicide explosion in Peshawar. It took place in Amina Bazaar. Amina Bazaar is what would be the English for Amina Bazaar? A fun fair, more of a fun fair, organized by one of the military garrisons there, and most of the people present there, it was basically a women-focused Meena Bazaar, or a fun fair, and all those killed were women and children. A whole lot of others. I mean, I can sit here and tell you scores and scores of incidents which have taken place in the last 14 years. As somebody said the other day in Washington, that your 9/11 was Peshawar. I said, I think nothing can be further from the truth. It was a tragic, ghastly incident, inhuman to say the least. But we have had more than one 9/11s. We have had repeated 9/11s in Pakistan, unfortunately. Yes, this was ghastly because of a particular incident that I repeat. 7 people, 7 terrorists climb onto the walls and on point blank range target children and their teachers. And during the course of their barbaric killing, he gets on the phone with their handlers across the border and he tries to take guidelines from him, saying, you know, we have killed quite a few, we have killed dozens of them, what do we do next? And the response from that man, from that monster across the border is, kill all of them. Don't stop, kill all of them. And I can say categorically, if they had not been stopped in their tracks, the target was not 145. The target was 1,045. Because over 1,000 children were present in the school. And unless and until they were stopped in their tracks by our counter-terrorism force, they did not stop shooting. The utter barbarity of their feelings exhibited in this, not only in the killing, but exhibited in this recorded message or this interchange of messages, reflects to the fact that these people do not subscribe to any religion. If, as is said, they are Islamic terrorists, then why should they be killing Muslims? Islam has very clear guidelines about the targets even in a state of war. Islam enjoins very strict prohibition killing common citizens. Women, children, can't even think of it. Even men, if they are not armed, and even if you're in a state of war, Islam forbids killing even of able-bodied men if they're not armed and they are not confronting you. So these people are not Muslims. They are not humans. They are monsters, educated and brainwashed on a different level. They are not a threat only to non-Muslims. They are a threat to the entire mankind, or humankind, sorry. They are a threat to Islam. And I've said it repeatedly on my visit to America and my interactions here at the official level. Pakistan has been saying it all along that to call them Islamic terrorists is following their agenda. Because then you divide the world, the international community, along religious lines. You divide them between the Muslim and the non-Muslim world. The entire Muslim world is not with the terrorists. The entire Muslim world is the target of terrorism. I gave these figures again at the highest level to Secretary Kerry, to Dr. Susan Rice, and here when I met senior officials, Home Secretary Theresa May, the advisor to the Prime Minister. In South Asia, we have had over 50,000 killed in Pakistan alone. 99.9%, in fact more than 99.9% of these are Muslims. More than 99.9% are Muslims. But if you take it generally, South Asia, North Africa, Middle East, over 99.5, and I'd say I quote these figures with full confidence. Over 99.5% of the casualties occurring in the hotbeds of the war in South Asia, Middle East, North Africa are Muslims. So how can these people be Islamic terrorists? Their targets are Muslims. And they have not killed hundreds or thousands. They have killed thousands of Muslims in the last 10 or 12 or 15 years. And whenever there's an incident, anywhere in the world, the entire Muslim community, not just the governments, the Muslim community converges on that incident and shows unanimity and shows its support to any incident, whether it occurs in France, in Denmark, in UK or the United States. Unfortunately, that does not happen when incidents take place in Pakistan or the Middle East. Things are not viewed in that perspective. The Muslims are the biggest target of terrorism, and yet we are castigated as the terrorists by a certain vested section of the Western society. Even in my years in the opposition or whether I've been in the government, we have had a consistent stand. The international community must do more to stop this correlation between Islam and terrorism. Islam and terrorism cannot go together. Islam is the opposite of terrorism, and terrorism is the opposite of Islam. Those of you who are Muslims would know about it. Those of you who are not, I request you to read about Islam, to read about the teaching of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, to read about his life. He did, I mean, if there was a pacifist in that day and age, it was him. In fact, through the ages, he taught tolerance. The Quran, it asks you not to even speak in a loud language to somebody. God Almighty repeatedly says that He loves people who speak with, in a lower tone. He dislikes people who shout and who give vent to their feelings. So it's a religion of peace. It's a religion of tolerance. It is a religion of coexistence. What these people are doing are misusing the message of Islam out of perspective. Yes, they do quote certain, but you have to see everything and read everything and understand everything in perspective. So they quote religious teaching out of perspective, and they have their own distorted and warped understanding of Islam. Please warn me about the time, because I don't want to.
No, about 5-6 minutes.
I could go on and on, because this is my job on a day-to-day basis.
5 minutes, 5 minutes.
One of the positive things that has happened, because I feel that you cannot take on these extremists without unity. Unity within a country, unity within the region where you have vast stretches of extremism, and unity amongst the international community. And let me again, at the cost of repetition, say, it is the agenda of the extremists to divide along religious lines. The objectives of the civilized world should be to keep that unity together. And we as Pakistanis, or a part of the Muslim world, have consistently tried, repeatedly, to try and convince our Western friends to disconnect Islam from terrorism. That narrative must be disconnected. I'm very happy to say that most of you might have gotten the message coming out of the Washington summit. Over 60 countries were represented there at the ministerial level. A very high focused meeting, and I think very well received. And the message of President Obama, we criticize the American policy. I have been criticizing the American policy day in and day out. I say it in front of them, I say it in Parliament, I say it outside. But you have to give them the due. President Obama made a very, very brave speech. and he categorically said that we must not connect Islam with terrorism. That's a huge quantum leap in that unity, international unity I was talking about. There has been massive criticism from his political opponents. But like I mentioned to the British leadership here yesterday, I think it is time for the international community not only to listen to President Obama's message, but also to close ranks behind it. Because closing ranks behind the message of President Obama would mean strengthening the international unity against terrorism. And creating fissures or divisions would be helping the extremist cause, because they want the divisions along religious lines. At the same time, both in America and here, and I say it in front of you also, please don't connect the criminal acts or the terrorist act of a few individuals from mainstream Islam. And don't react in the same vein. When the incident at Paris occurred, not only the whole world, the whole Muslim community got together. They were standing side by side with quite a few Muslim heads of state, made a dash to Paris. They were standing shoulder to shoulder with the French president and the French nation. But how was that responded to? The next day, the same publication republished those caricatures, republished those cartoons, so-called cartoons. What was the message going across? You want to further exacerbate those divisions in the name of free press and democracy? As again I've always maintained, and all of you are privy to it, democracy and the free press gives you a lot of space, but with the responsibility. And your freedom ends where my nose begins. So it is very, very important for the West to somehow check this practice, which is further exacerbating these fissures and these divisions. I am hopeful there is a fallout of as we move forward into September for the final summit in the General Assembly later this year. This international unity will further increase. We in Pakistan are lucky that we have now a political momentum, a political consensus, in which the National Action Plan, in which I can talk about it, in response to one of your questions, we are moving forward with full political consensus, and that is giving a lot of strength to the government in addressing this. We have a military operation on the ground. From 8 to 10 to 12 detonations every day, we now have weeks going by the grace of God, where not a single explosion takes place. Weeks goes by. But a lot of more work needs to be done. We are into madrasa reform. We are into checking prescribed organizations. We are into checking hate speech. We are into countering religious intolerance. But let me also tell you, it is easier said. It's not easy, particularly in our societies. But we have enjoined on ourselves that task, and through a political consensus, we are embarked on that process. It is a defining moment, ladies and gentlemen. Let me not underestimate the threat that is posed to the modern civilization on account of extremism. And look, how far they've got. Those three girls, I can quote so many examples, but the three girls who 15-year-olds, how they have been brainwashed into doing what they did. There are hundreds of other examples. We must not underestimate the threat, but we must do it in a cool manner. We must not undermine international unity on the issue. We must not put it into religious compartments. We must reach out to communities, to religions, to other countries, if there was one buzzword which would, if you ask me, and I would say, which we can confront and defeat extremism, I would say unity. Unity of purpose, unity of words, unity of implementation. And that unity has to start from the national level, wherever extremism is rampant. It has to then translate or be dovetailed into the regional level. And then it should go into a higher level at the international level. At the end, I'm confident that what has transpired in the last few weeks and months, it gives me a lot of confidence. But the path ahead is very difficult, very arduous. You'll have to build brick by brick. You'll have to not only fight the extremists, but also the inhibitions within us, the controversies within us, the mindsets within us. Unless and until we address those mindsets within us to evolve a strategy, this meaningful this meaningful effort at victory will not be achieved. I thank you very much for your attention.
Minister, thank you very much for your presentation. There were some very powerful messages that came from you, and we've noted these messages at the IISS. I want to congratulate you on being the first Minister of the Interior and Narcotics Control of Pakistan to be able to bring together the 33 intelligence agencies that you've talked about and provide greater coordination and sharing of intelligence, which clearly is a key element in Pakistan's counter-terrorism policy. Before I ask for the floor to be open and questions from the floor, let me quickly ask you two questions relating to what you've just said. The first is an important phrase that you used a few seconds ago, which is unity of implementation and the requirement for unity of implementation. Are you convinced today that you do have a unity politically in terms of the various parties, in terms of civilian leadership, in terms of the relationship with the military? Do you have unity of implementation for the National Action Plan? And secondly, I have in front of me the 20 points of the National Action Plan. The term terrorist has been used several times in this plan. How do you define a terrorist in terms of a unified perspective, Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhry. I think first, allow me to respond to the second part of your question. A terrorist is somebody who takes up arms against the state, does not subscribe to any law, does not subscribe to any religion, does not subscribe to any norms of civilization. This, broadly speaking, is my description of a terrorist. Yes, some addition, subtraction can take place, but that is a basic concept. On the issue of the National Action Plan, I think, and I think I've touched it in my remarks at the outset, one of the very positive things to have happened in Pakistan is a broad political consensus on the way forward as to how to handle or to confront extremism. And let me tell you very clearly, this consensus includes right of the center political parties. It includes religious parties. It includes parties who were previously against any kind of military intervention. They were only talking about dialogue and promoting dialogue with the terrorists. So this is a huge, huge quantum leap which has strengthened the hands of the government. And this National Action Plan was not just conceived by the government. I happen to chair it. But the major credit of this National Action Plan, as I said in the meetings, must go to the entire political parties of Pakistan, who at considerable cost sometimes, because some of these areas are their constituencies. They not only became part but own this National Action Plan. Add to that the support of the military. The military does sometimes come at the wrong end of the criticism by the political forces, and I've been one of them. But again, when they do something positive, we should, like I said about the Americans, we should give them their due. I think the military has been totally with the elected government on the decisions that need to be taken. Went into a dialogue process, they were totally with us. When we opted for a military operation, they were totally with us. And now on the National Action Plan, they are totally with us. I would probably require a separate hour or two if I were to explain the nitty-gritty of the National Action Plan. But very briefly, in the next couple of sentences, the basic target, the basic objective is to strike at the ground roots of extremism in Pakistan, the breeding grounds, the genesis, and we do it in a very, very planned manner, in a very, very concerted manner, in an environment of political consensus and of good civil military consensus. We are doing that. Political momentum is holding, but I also would like to give a word of caution. This political consensus is not permanent, and only good performance on the National Action Plan by the government and related agencies will carry this momentum forward. So we're very, very cognizant of that, and we are hopeful to carry it forward, not only in the interest of the National Action Plan, but also in the interest of the political consensus on account of it. Thank you.
Desmond Bowen, IISS member.
Thank you very much for your eloquent speech. One thing you talked about is the monsters who are perpetrating terrorism, and you talked about education and brainwashing. Could you just say something more about tackling that education and brainwashing process, which seems to start very early on in the life of these monsters who then perpetrate these atrocities?
Well, thank you for your kind words on my personal account. But I understand the basic background of your question, and point is well taken. But apart from a lot of other things, it is very, very important to clear misgivings, long-held misgivings about our way of life, our system of education, our historical perspectives, which might or might not have served as some kind of a genesis for extremism. I would like to believe that your question basically relates to madrasas, or the religious form of education being imparted to very poor people who cannot afford public education or even official education. I am quite embarrassed to say that before I took over this particular portfolio, even I was not aware of the exact nature of the problem. Since now it is on my table, and in fact on my lap, if I can use that term, and in my lap, if I can use that term, I've got into it in detail, and I can tell you very categorically that a lot of the info about madrasas being the breeding grounds for terrorism is totally ill-founded. It is totally and absolutely ill-founded. We have gone into the entire aspect. Now I'll just give you one set of figures. I have not given in Pakistan, but I'll give it to you. In Pakistan, I've always said 90%, over 90% of madrasas are absolutely have had no connection with terrorism. Yes, they gave religious education. Yes, a lot of that education might not be modern in the sense, modern curricula is not part of it. We are engaged. We are trying to dovetail that also, and they are not negative. You know, those who handle these madrasas, they are not negative to modern education. It's the responsibility of the government, of the state, to somehow provide them this opportunity. And I think we'll have to make that effort, and we are undertaking that effort. But we carried out an exercise of how many of the terrorists who had been apprehended or of whom we have a record went through madrasas, both here and across the border, or went across the border. Only 7% of terrorists recorded. And out of these, who actually engaged in terrorist activity is much less. I'll keep that figure to myself because that is minimal. That is much less than even half of this, who actually undertook a terrorist act. So, we are using the madrasas to reform themselves. I held a meeting with the heads of all the madrasas. Without a moment's hesitation, they agreed for auditing, for auditing of their funds, for screening, for registration, for a whole lot of other, including curriculum. They want improvement in the madrasas, they want government help, and we should do it. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of these information for which you are not responsible, this information comes from vested quarters from within the country. That those we are conscious of it. We are trying to work from within, and we are hopeful that if any part or any segment of society of Pakistan engage in any kind of terrorism, be it the madrasas, be it the normal school, be it the society, be it the educated class, we will take them to task and to put them where they deserve, in jail, and not living as a free citizen. Thank you.
A lot of people who ask questions. I've got the list. Here I ask you first, please. If you can identify yourself and then ask a question, and I'll take a group of 2 or 3 just now.
My name is Dr. Shahid Qureshi. I am editor of the London Post and the senior analyst with the BBC. Doing an excellent speech, Minister. It was. We did a research on terrorist funding in Pakistan, which was a major issue. I'll just quote some figures that in the previous government between March 2008 to March 2013, you had about 64,446 murders, you had 16,000 women raped, and you had about 88,000 kidnappings. These things were linked with the law and order and the policing, which you touched upon. And being while we were doing a research, we did a research on terrorist funding, which was coming from the land mafia. And being a victim of myself, with dealing with land mafia for past 2 years, we have come to the conclusion that the local police system is completely failed, because when the orders come from the top, when it goes at the bottom level, it's just totally diluted into nothing. So can you please comment on that? Thank you.
So let me take, yes, the lady there, Shahzadi, please.
Shahzadi Beg, I'm a barrister. 2 short questions for you, Minister. Firstly, that if groups like Ahl Sunnat wal Jamaat are able to hold public rallies despite being proscribed organisations, what does that say for your national action plan? You've talked about the definition of a terrorist being someone who takes up arms against the state. Abdulaziz Ghazi has done just that. His disciples have now sworn allegiance to the Islamic State. And you said this about him in Washington, and I quote, "If we arrest him and it leads to yet another tragic incident, it will have very negative consequences indeed." Unquote. To a bystander, that may look like the government is abdicating its responsibility in taking on and dismantling militant organisations. Secondly, can I just very quickly raise this, and as a lawyer this concerns me very deeply. A democratically elected government has passed the 21st Constitution Amendment setting up military courts. What do you intend to do to reform the criminal justice system so that it becomes fit for purpose in 2 years' time when military courts come to an end?
Fine. Do these two. No, sir, thank you. Thank you for your words, for your kind words. But the answer to your question does not really relate to terrorism. I'm not privy to the figures. You mentioned the previous government. You're not mentioned these figures over what period of time. So I'm not very clear. Fine, but then if you could correlate it with the figures of the United Kingdom, the United States, India, I'll be in a better position to answer you. But if you can share it with me, I'll ask our High Commission to interact with you. But this is a separate subject. We are basically focused on terrorism. Yes, law and order is poor, not as bad as a lot of other countries, I can say with a lot of confidence. But yes, it needs drastic action, a lot of brick by brick hard work, getting down to the nitty-gritty, police reform, as has been said. But this is a completely different topic. I could say a lot on this. But on the issue of the mafia, well, I am very, very happy to base my politics totally on an anti-land mafia perspective, and I'm very proud of it. No land mafia has been able to buy me. Nobody has been able to affect me, and at least in my area of responsibility, there has been a complete cleaning up. What has happened previously, I will not pass any comment on that, but I totally agree with you that it's not just the land mafia. A lot of other mafias have taken over Pakistan. I do not say that we have been able to clear all of them, but it is very, very important to bring sanity into that country. We should stick out the long arm of the law to ensure that these people are brought to justice. Whenever such cases are brought into my notice, whether from the expat community here in Pakistan, you can rest assured that I will do my ultimate duty, because ultimately I am responsible to the Almighty, and I will ensure that justice is done. But if you share your figures with us, with me, my I will interact with you further on this. But thank you for your intervention. Barrister Sahiba, two things. Public rallies, I totally agree with you. When prescribed organizations undertake rallies, I totally agree with you. And I have voiced the same, not only concerns, but also articulated in almost exactly the same way as you did in our official meetings. It has been happening over the last 12, 13, 14 years, in fact, even more. After the next action plan, we have put into practice a framework in which these are checked. A JUD rally in Punjab was totally, just a few days ago, it was ransacked, if I can use that term. Similarly, another prescribed organization's rally was banned within Islamabad. While agreeing to the basic tone and tenor of your argument, I totally agree. No two opinions about that. It will take a bit of time, inshallah. The mindset of the government is clear. Just bear with us, to try and implement policies which corroborate the spirit of what you said. It will take a bit of time. 177 proscribed organization under the UN resolution, 1980 resolution, 60 plus under the Pakistan law and act. No record. We don't know whether organizations have changed names. We don't know whether individuals have gone into other organizations. We are working around the clock to try to bring some level of sanity there, to bring some level of, some framework there on which, if a prescribed organization goes beyond its legal limits, which are very clear, then for legal action to follow almost immediately. It will take a bit of time, I understand that, but action has been taken over the last few weeks. On Maulana Aziz, I think my statement at Washington has been quoted out of context. We are carrying out actions against individuals, militants who have taken up arms against the government. Abdul Aziz made a statement, a veiled statement, talking about not being able to condemn the Peshawar incident and casting some aspersions about the Constitution. Now he's just made a statement. He retracted from that. He apologized. He didn't apologize. He retracted, saying that he condemns the incident, and he also retracted his statement regarding the Constitution. So what I tried to say was that at the moment our focus is on militants, active militants who have taken up arms. Aziz's case comes up later. What do we put him in jail for? I made a detailed statement, and you have just quoted part of my statement. So the point, of course, I did say what you said, but the point is that we have an independent judiciary. Do we put him in jail for a statement which he retracted almost immediately? And then he has given a written statement to the police, committing his good behavior. He's not done anything since the last incident. So it is in that context that. But having said that, let me also inform you. One understands your concern and one totally appreciates it also. But there are questions of capacity. There are questions of this historical baggage. So the government wants to take on one thing at a time. We have to schedule it, we have to segment it, compartmentalize it, and hopefully in the next few months, in the next year, you will see a significant change in not only the policy of the government, but these individuals, whether they are taking up arms or making statements, you will see that they will be brought to book. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I'd be grateful if the people I asked to ask a question could stick to the Minister's topic for today. Let me take the next batch of three. Faryal Lagari, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Nice to finally see you in person and hear you talk. Is this on? Okay. My question relates to, I read a statement by the Foreign Office that the IS, Pakistan, will not be part of any coalition against the IS, and that it fares severe reprisals, and IS is a great threat to the stability of Pakistan. I would like to ask you, since you are coordinating all the intelligence agencies and the information, that how serious is the IS threat in Pakistan? There have been TTP breakaway factions that have pledged allegiance. I totally understand that. But I had some talks with military officials during my visit to Pakistan in January, and as far as my understanding goes, there have not been much of an influx from Pakistan towards Syria, Iraq, and even Libya now. What we fear is an entrenchment of the IS in Pakistan. So do you feel this is a credible threat, and what are you doing to alleviate this?
Thank you. The gentleman, and then yes, please.
Thank you very much, Minister, for a detailed info on Pakistan situation. My name is Azhar Javed. I'm from a Pakistani journalist based in London, working for Dunya Media Group. Minister, you talked about the unity in international community. If we saw that during the Operation Zarb, as when Pakistan military started to eliminate the terrorists in the northwest borders of Pakistan, we see suddenly rise in the violation on the eastern border from India. Do you think this affects the Pakistan Army's capability to fight against terrorism? And secondly, we also have learned that there is a greater threat to the Prime Minister, Chief Minister and yourself after the start of all these operations. How you respond to this one? And third, how's the Operation Zarb is going on? We have listened that Pakistan Army is doing a tremendous work on this side.
Okay, the last person in this batch is the gentleman here. Yes, please. If you identify yourself and then take three.
Sure.
No, sorry, the gentleman behind. Is the gentleman behind?
Dr. Sam knows everything.
Yes, please. Please identify yourself.
Not so nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Could identify.
My name is Shamsul Arifin. I'm a chartered accountant and member of this institute.
Welcome.
You yourself confirmed that Pakistan has sacrificed over 50,000 human lives in this tragedy. And I wouldn't be exaggerating when I say that literally the river of blood are flowing in Pakistan. And yet, international community see us with an eye of suspicion. So where is Pakistan going wrong? My second question
Let me just one, I think, because we got a lot of other people, if you don't mind.
Three questions. Then we got another batch of three. And then three big questions.
Right. On the question of ISIL in Pakistan, I have repeatedly made statements on this aspect. I am very clear that we should not underestimate this threat, but we should not overplay it either. As of today, and I say it with full responsibility, there is no ISIL threat in Pakistan. And I say it on the basis of record. I say it on the basis of ISIL infiltrating into Pakistan or Pakistanis going and joining them. Almost nominal. Very, very minuscule. Why? Number one, because ISIL is basically a Middle Eastern organization as of today. I don't know about tomorrow, I don't know about a month hence. And they have their focus entirely on the Middle East. They don't have ambition, at least for the time being, outside, nor do they have the capacity. Number two, the space in Afghanistan and on Pakistan's border is already, the space for terrorism or for militancy is already occupied by TTP-A and TTP and TTA, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, Tehrik-e-Taliban Afghanistan. They have nothing in common with ISIL. In fact, they would guard their area of influence, whatever there is, very religiously. The agendas of the two are different. So I think we should not overplay as sections of various media, others, sections of society are overplaying the ISIL threat. I feel as of now there is no, but we have our ears, eyes open. We feel that we must be cognizant of this threat all the time. But as of now, I don't feel there's an imminent ISIL threat into Pakistan and vice versa. India ke hawale se, I hope I have answered your question. Yeah, thank you. On the question of India, I do not want to turn this interaction towards our relations with India and Pakistan. Naturally, I would have a prejudice view since I belong to Pakistan. We have had our ups and downs in the relations between India and Pakistan, more downs than up. I have a personal view about that relationship. We are talking about unity in terms of the fight against terror, and I think it's the need of the hour, not only for India and Pakistan, but for all countries to come together. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif made that very brave decision to go to the inauguration of President Modi. Let me be a bit more open and say that a lot of discussions took place on whether he should go there or not. There was division within the cabinet, and there was division even otherwise within the government. The Prime Minister decided to ignore those divisions, went to India. It had a very positive impact. The interaction between the two Prime Ministers was very positive, and it was decided that Foreign Secretary, interaction, if not dialogue, will start soon after. Unfortunately, it did not. We feel, in Pakistan we feel that there was not enough reason for India to break off that dialogue. We also feel that a decision taken at the level of the Prime Minister should not have been conveyed through the media, but that is between us. We need not get into that. We need to look at the way forward, and with respect to the need of the hour, the unity in face of extremism, I think a window of opportunity has opened up. Prime Minister Modi made a call to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif just as I was about to leave for Washington. It was a very good conversation. It was in terms of cricket, because cricket is one area in which it brings the two countries closer. But then naturally they also talked about politics, and the Indian Foreign Secretary is due to visit Pakistan very soon. So we see that as a window of opportunity and a window of hope also, that it removes the misgivings and it provides opportunity for the two countries to come closer. We are also thinking in terms of holding, and I discussed this in Washington, Pakistan has always believed and has always promoted the idea of regional cooperation against terrorism. We feel that international ideas and solutions should not be thrust upon countries or in regions. We should have our own solutions to the problem. So we are thinking in terms, once I get back, I'll discuss it with the Prime Minister and other stakeholders. If we can hold a regional conference on countering terrorism before the summit in autumn this year in the United General Assembly, I think that's also provide us an opportunity of coming together. Zarb-e-Azab, on security, I think it's a personal issue, whether it's the Prime Minister, the Chief Ministers or myself. Azhar Saab, that is part of the job. That is part of the security hazard that goes with the job. So as we Muslims feel life is in the hand of the Almighty, we are doing what we are doing in the interest of the country and what we feel should be done by me as a Muslim. The rest is up to Almighty. It is not in the hand of the terrorists. Zarb-e-Azab, I think it has been going very well. Most of the areas has been cleared. I accompanied the Prime Minister and the Army Chief immediately after Miran Shah was cleared. That is the headquarters. I wish I could give you a background of what we saw, but one particular place I'd like to mention. One particular underground hall was there, in which there was a huge painting, a beautiful painting in the background. All other, it had been well done up, and that was supposed to be heaven. That was a picture of heaven, in which these individuals were made to sit for hours and brainwashed as to the environment they go to after the heinous crimes that they commit. So we actually went and saw their concept of heaven. We saw their underground tunnels. We saw a whole lot of other things. Miran Shah has been cleared. Miran Ali has been cleared. Datta Khair has been cleared. Now they've gone into the mountains, the sensitive area. I think we are now at the last toe end of the operation. The operation, by the grace of Allah, has gone very well. And I think the results speak for themselves. As I said, we are not sitting on these, but now weeks go before, they are able to strike the terrorists. And the fact they're striking against schools, against churches, against Imam Bargahs, which is the religious places of worship for the Shia community, against in the marketplaces, that manifests their frustration. That means that the security operation has been successful. They can't hit meaningful targets. They are going against the softest targets. That reflects their frustration, and that reflects the positive aspect of the Zarb-e-Azab. Where is Pakistan going? Inshallah, all the way up, inshallah, by the grace of God, Allah Almighty. Because we feel we are on the right. Yes, we have gone through these tribulations. There have been more downs than ups. But, as Muslims, we have something else to look forward to. Allah Almighty, as has been enshrined in the book, there are difficult times, and then there are good times, followed by good times. We are making efforts, we are making huge sacrifices. We are doing what is humanly possible. I mean, even most developed societies, the UK, the United States, France, Denmark, secure societies, well-knit societies, even they face this calamity of terrorism. They face it from the outside, we face it from the inside. So I can tell you that inshallah, the only way that you look forward to and pray also at the same time, this Pakistan is going to achieve its ultimate objectives. In alliance with the international community, we will send the extremists to where they belong, and that is their place in hell, inshallah.
The last two questions that we have to end, we've gone way over time. Yes, please. And the last one there, yes. Please identify yourself for the...
My name is Muhammad Sarwar from the Nation newspaper. Mr. Minister, you have already given me an answer which I was going to be asked to you, but I have changed my questions. The India and Pakistan are very much involved and too much involved in the blame game. And even yesterday, the Pakistan Defense Minister Khwaja Asif very astonishingly revealed or blamed, or whatever you like to use the word, that the Baloch separatist leaders are traveling throughout the world on Indian passport, and they are going to Delhi to get dictation, and they come back and they do accordingly. Do you think these sort of statements would not create more anxiety, complicity in the relationship which you want? And also I think Mr. Modi wants to streamline. So what will be your response?
The last question, yes, yes. Gentleman there.
Thank you, Rahul, for accommodating this question. My name is Mudassir Malik. Minister Chaudhry, thank you very much for your very insightful remarks here. Very heartening to know that the Ministry of Interior is taking such major structural steps to address this very important domestic and international problem. I have a brief comment and a brief question. My comment is simply that, as a Pakistani and as someone who has also lived in Britain for many years, I've traveled the length and breadth of Pakistan, and to me, Pakistan represents a country of immense moderates, and 180 million people across the length and breadth of Pakistan are moderate Muslims who are peace-loving. So the 7% of madrasas that you highlighted in your talk, I think is certainly a figure that is the figure that needs to be focused on in terms of addressing the radical issue. And as a individual who's been involved in promoting Pakistan in the investment side, I do feel and identify with your concern that 5% of the worst news is projected 95% of the time on the international media, and so that's something that puts Pakistan on the back foot, on the word get-go, and certainly something needs to be done about that. My question is really very specific. As part of the National Action Program, what specifically is the Ministry of Interior doing to choke off funding to terrorist cells, and what level of collaboration is it engaged with in countries like Britain and America to enable this to happen? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Malik Sahab, and thank you for your kind words. I think first I have to address your question. I think let us be very frank and very candid about the fact that India has problems with Pakistan, and Pakistan has problems with India. The relations have not always been good. Let us look forward. If I was to ask in a certain forum or sitting across the table with my Indian colleagues, I would give the entire record of what I know and what would form the basis of my complaints. And I'm sure they have their share of complaints against Pakistan. Pakistan feels, and this is a consistent stance by successive governments, that these issues must be discussed across the table. Pakistan has been consistently trying for that dialogue. There has been a hesitancy on the other part, but now, luckily, we are moving towards that. So hopefully, the visit by the Indian Foreign Secretary will provide that leverage, that open door to jumpstart the dialogue process. Once you're engaged in dialogue, then the momentum itself for peace takes over. The momentum for resolution of issues, the momentum for trying and addressing each other's problems. So I think it will not be fair for me to highlight or identify the complaints that we have against India, or whether one statement has been right or the other one has right. I think I can only say, and let me fine-tune my answer by saying, let's hope for the best. Good relations between India and Pakistan will have huge impact, not only for the people of India and Pakistan, but for the entire region, and ultimately for, positively fighting this or contesting this fight against extremism. Malik Sahab, your points generally well taken. The question that you have put before me, it is a very difficult part of the National Action Plan that we have identified. As of now, the progress so far is that we have already started talking to brotherly Muslim countries, where we feel that there are some areas in which greater interaction and greater information sharing is required for us to block these channels of financing. We've already started talking, I will not name those countries, but at least 2 or 3 countries with whom areas of communication have already opened. On my visit to Washington and the UK, I have talked to them about the necessity for them to not only share their level of information, but also in capacity strengthening of our organizations like the FIA, like the PTA, other related organizations, to help us counter this very serious aspect of terrorist capacity. So we are very much apprised of the problem. We have taken the steps that we can take, that we could have taken in the short term. We will continue to work both with the international community and countries with which we have a close relationship. It is no easy job. In spite of that close interaction and the close information sharing, I assure you, and you would understand me, you understand even more than me, even then there will be loopholes, but we will try our utmost. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. I'm hopeful that we will be able to bring about a significant decrease in terrorism financing, which is undertaken in Pakistan and the region in the foreseeable future. I thank you very much. I thank you for your attention. Chaudhry Sahab, I'm most grateful for providing the opportunity. It has been a tremendous experience interacting with some very good questions. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Minister. I think, as you've seen, your presentation had very strong messages, and I think in terms of the questions that you also received, there were some very good questions. But I must say your response to the questions were very detailed and very frank, and for that reason especially, I would like to thank you very warmly for spending time to come to the IISS, speaking to us, and I look forward to continuing this relationship with you when the IISS team next goes into Pakistan and Islamabad. I would also like to ask all of you to join me in thanking the Minister for the presentation and the discussion.